This week's edition of our Four Questions Journalist Spotlight is brought to you by Leff Atlanta Media, Atlanta's best journalist database. Subscribe at leffsatlantamedia.com. Welcome to the next edition of our Four Questions Journalist Spotlight. We are talking today with Trevor Williams, who is the managing editor of Global Atlanta. Hello, Trevor.
Hey Mitch, how's it going?
Good, good, good. Well, I always like to start out a little bit by kind of giving the big picture of, what is Global Atlanta and what do you guys like to focus on?
Yeah, we call it the 30-year startup. We're in a new phase of our growth now, but I'll tell you a bit about the history. Started as a fax, well, first started as a print, but then moved to a fax called Global Fax news service, founded by a guy named Phil Bolton, who's still around here in Metro Atlanta. And Phil had come back from a freelance stint overseas where he was reporting on banking and credit cards from France. And around the time that Atlanta won the Olympics, and Phil had been a local journalist here in Georgia, Macon and Milledgeville, and he decided he'd meld his two experiences of a local newsman and international journalist and create something that looks at how Atlanta's connected with the world. So we've been doing that since the early 1990s. And today we're really focused, and always have been, focused heavily on international business as it relates to Georgia, education, culture, trade, diplomacy, these topics. We really look at how Atlantans are connected to the world and how they can constructively engage with it.
And I will say I'm probably one of those folks who does remember the global facts. I do remember getting that
Yep.
before it switched over to this internet thing format and worked
Yeah.
with Phil for a long, long time.
Yeah, and I mean, the internet thing's even pretty old for us at this point. I think it switched over in 2004. I joined in '07 as a newly minted UGA journalism grad and worked my way up and did what I call the last man standing approach to entrepreneurship, which is where you just wait for the founder to retire and you just hang around long enough that he feels comfortable letting you take over.
When did he actually retire? I mean, it's been a few years, right?
2019 officially.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah. So I took
Okay.
up that point. Of course, all my great plans for event-led business development were waylaid by COVID. So that's why I say we're sort of in the new growth phase now.
Yeah, there is a little bit of that, but it's amazing. I guess people kind of sort of know, but there's so much international business that flows through Atlanta. I mean, years ago, I worked with the American Israel Chamber of Commerce, and there was so much just going on with those guys, and there were so many consulates and kind of business and what do you
Chambers, like national chambers and
right,
whatnot.
right, yeah, yeah. Like, every once in a while, I'll get a call from the Danish Economic Chamber or the Chamber of the Taiwan Economic Chamber, and I get, and some of these guys are, more under the radar than they probably want to be, and that's why they call me because they don't quite want to be so under the radar anymore.
Yeah.
Uh, and I always tell them, do you guys know Global Atlanta? Yeah, and they always say, oh, yes, we know Global Atlanta. Of course we do.
I,
Uh,
in
so
that field, I hope they do. I think we still have this story to tell to the broader community, but yeah.
and that's why we're talking because I want to tell that story because there are media outlets that are big TV stations and big newspapers that have big budgets for marketing, and
Mhm.
then there are organizations like Global Atlanta that is a little smaller and more focused and doesn't have the same marketing budget, right? But is doing great things in a very focused area. And I mean, like the AJC for a little while, I don't know, blink of an eye, a year, did they said, oh, we're going to focus on international business, and they actually had a section focused on international business, but you know, that came and went, and Global Atlanta is still here, still doing what you guys have been doing for
Last man standing approach, man.
right, right. Just keep on doing it. Yeah.
The
I
tortoise
mean,
approach to journalistic sustainability, I guess.
yeah. Remind me, what was the year that Phil started Global Atlanta? What year was that?
Well, I have right behind me here, I have the you can't see it because of the focus, but the second issue of the Global Business Reporter, which was the original print edition, and that was launched in 1991. But
91. Okay.
Global Facts technically launched in 93. So we're again 30 plus years into this.
All right. And it may be obvious, but describe for our listeners and viewers what is your focus? What do you like? What is the sweet spot for Global Atlanta in terms of coverage?
Yeah. So, just to give a little bit more background on what you were saying and how we think about our place in the world and Atlanta's place in the world. Phil used to give this talk called From Conception to Cliche, and I still feel like this is like a great way to encapsulate what we do a little bit. Like when he started, the international business landscape here was not nearly as complex and varied as it is now. I mean, the early 90s, you had the post-Cold War kind of awakening of the Eastern Bloc and all this stuff, and there was lots of activity. This kind of exuberance about free markets and the prevailing of the of capitalism over communism, all that stuff. But back then, there was not really, at least from what he tells me, I was not here at that time. But he said that there was not that many organizations or wasn't that much activity. When a delegation would come in, it would be a big deal, right? Like he always talks about the Uzbek cotton traders that would come to to Atlanta to source cotton or to sell their cotton. And and like making people aware of those activities or these inbound trade missions, et cetera, was a huge service because there's really no other way to kind of get that information. And I would say now I think it's the opposite. I think you see the cliche is that everybody assumes that the world is interconnected. There's all this talk about how globally engaged we are, how small the world is, technology has shrunk everything. The world is flat, is the Tom Friedman book, of what, 15, 20 years ago now. But, so our thinking is that we live somewhere in the middle, right? We have all these opportunities to engage with the world, but there are things like ignorance and a lack of relationships, a lack of understanding of the opportunity. And our thinking is that through the news, we can awaken people to those opportunities to engage. And our news creates knowledge and networks that help Metro Atlantans and Georgians kind of see the world as an opportunity rather than just a threat. And of course, globalization sometimes is seen as a boogeyman. Of course, we don't shy away from the negative effects of it, but at the same time, we're looking at actionable content that helps people engage with the world and telling stories of this interconnectivity.
What is and it brings up kind of obviously a great segue to what are you seeing over the last few months with the new administration? Is that affecting global trade, the number of folks coming in, those relationships? What are people saying?
Yeah, I mean it's interesting for me having started in this 17 years ago to or 18, I guess almost now, to see how the global economy has gone from something you don't really think about to something that's front page news every day. I mean, the US in general is not that integrated with the world when it comes to economics. I mean, I always throw out this stat. I'm not sure if it's true anymore, but 15% of our economy is exports. International trade is yes, substantial, but it's not essential for a lot of companies. They can operate just fine selling across the border to Alabama. And so we've seen this kind of, I guess, awakening or this understanding, this growing understanding that we are connected with the world, maybe more than we thought we were, and that what happens out there affects us in here. And I think that the kind of turbulence of the new administration is kind of shaping that and bring that into sharper relief. Right. So,
I
I mean,
mean,
we're hearing a lot, obviously, about tariffs, about nearshoring or reshoring or whatever you want to call it. And that refers to companies that are bringing their manufacturing, I'll put back in quotation marks, to US or Western Hemisphere or places that are supposed to be friendlier or more resilient, more sustainable than, say, China or other places in Asia. So, like, those are some of the broad trends. In terms of tracking it, it's not that easy because obviously it's changing every day. We're not hugely staffed for a lot of breaking news and trying to give people, the up to the minute updates. But what we try to do is add context and we try to relay the perspective of people who are living it in the business world. And hopefully that helps others who are reading get a sense for what's going on.
Yeah. You, you mentioned, excuse me, I think this pollen is getting to me. You mentioned also events that you used to do more events, and obviously the pandemic kind of impacted that. Are you trying to get back to that? Are you getting back to that a bit more?
Actually, that's a good tee up for me to pitch us a little bit.
There you go.
So pre-pandemic, we did some events, but it was we had a series called Consular Conversations where we got a diplomat up in front of a luncheon audience every month. That started in 2016. So we had events going on, but really weren't strategic about it until really the post-pandemic kind of phase. So that's a big part of our rationale going forward, bringing our reporting into real life, helping connect people and convene. I've been thinking about this tagline today. It's not official yet, but convening consequential conversations. I love alliteration, so
Yeah.
you'll hear
Yeah.
me complain that every title we do is alliterative. But I think the idea is that, the relational aspect of what we do is probably the most valuable for the community. And if you just leave it on the screen or on the page, and you leave the 90% of the reporting that you do that doesn't go into the article by the wayside, then you're leaving a lot of the value you have in terms of your institutional knowledge on the table. So we're trying to take that knowledge, use it to become a convener, and then use that as a way to make our business, journalistic business, sustainable.
Do you have an event coming up that folks should know about?
We have a lot. So we've done 6 or 7 this year. Well, actually, I think 7 or 8 this year already. The Consular Conversations series still goes. It's been going on for 8 years, sponsored by Miller and Martin law firm. And so we're hosting a couple of those coming up. One with the Irish Consul General in April, one with the Indian Consul General in May, and then we'll have later in the year Dominican Republic, and I think in September, is it? We've got it. It's something scheduled out that far. There's another one coming. So those are the diplomatic stuff, and then we've also started to do events on behalf of our partners, kind of our annual sponsors and advertisers, and then we do a lot of business focused events. Things like we have a series called Expats and Experts, where we bring people together around the idea of resettling, global teams here in Atlanta. So bringing in top talent from around the world, what kind of things do they need to think about? We're doing a big sustainability focused event with Atlanta International School, which is one of our partners. So there's a lot coming down. And the big thing for our business is that we have launched a membership. And I'm sure you've seen a lot of news outlets thinking through what that looks like. For us, it's really heavily events based. We launched the Global Atlanta Passport last year, and we're up to close to 200 members now. And these are, you pay one price and you can come to all of our stuff throughout the year. So it's a pretty
Okay,
good deal.
that's a good deal. Um, are there other topics? Obviously, tariffs and what we talked about. Other topics that you've kind of been looking at, thinking, okay, I want to. This is percolating in the back of my head. I need to get to this.
Yeah, I think we kind of look at the intersection of the industries and the geographies when it comes to Atlanta. So and where we can add value in terms of the conversation and maybe making it a little bit more global or bringing to light the fact that it's global. So we've done a lot, obviously, on electric vehicles. That's been a big topic of interest as all these Korean companies have come in, principally Korean, but there are a lot of other automotive suppliers that have come in and invested billions of dollars. Of course, Hyundai had its big grand opening last week in near Savannah. And now we're waiting on auto tariffs potentially this week. So yeah, the EV and sort of like electric mobility, sustainable transportation sector, that's big for us these
Yeah,
days.
I mean, there's this whole idea that's percolating that, if that it's possible to bring the whole automotive industry supply chain, back to the U.S. isn't even the right because it's never, well, maybe 120 years ago it was entirely in the U.S. But I mean that supply chain hasn't been anywhere near U.S. based for decades, right?
Yeah, yeah,
So, and I was just having a conversation earlier with someone. It's like, well, yeah, theoretically you could, have a supply chain where every part of the car is manufactured in the U.S., but what does that make the price of your $20,000 car then, right?
Yeah,
50,000?
yeah. I mean, I think there's lots of different like whack-a-mole situations that you can get
Right,
into.
right.
I mean, I think the general idea behind it, as far as I can interpret it, is that we want productive capacity here as a matter of national security. And I think that when you talk to people, diplomats from other countries, and who everybody went through the pandemic and understands that resiliency is a big issue. Like when you're dependent on one country for all your PPE, that's probably not a good thing. So I think there's a pendulum swing back in the direction of protectionism and industrial policy and all these things. But I do think it's kind of a fallacy to think that we can make a purely American supply chain. And even back in the day, Henry Ford was going all over the world to Brazil. I don't know if you've read the story of Fordlandia in Brazil and how he tried to set up a huge rubber plantation there and created a company.
You're right. I do remember that.
Like
That's
there's
right. That's
always
right.
been
Yeah.
a search for the balance between, what's good for our people or for our workers and what's good for our consumers and, what's good for the world. I think trade has been on balance a pretty positive thing for the world. If you look at the way that China, India, other countries have risen out of poverty on the back of trade, growing middle class around the world, it creates consumers for American goods
Right.
potentially. So
Right.
I think everybody feels like there's probably some room for adjustment and probably some room for some moderation at the same time.
Well, and as you said, that's the theory is if you have, workers in another country that you're paying well, part of the theory is paying them a decent wage, right? So if you're paying them a decent wage and they're making more money than they were before, then you turn them into consumers of American products and then you got a profit chain, right?
Yeah, and I mean the other thing that no one says about this is a lot of the jobs that we have offshored in the past are jobs that people weren't so happy to do, and
Right.
and
Right.
reflects itself in the way that one of the top concerns for most companies these days is workforce. They can't find enough workers, so even if you do bring back all these factories, you have to figure out how to find workers to populate them, and then if you can't, you're going to end up with a lot of automation, which means lots of investment in equipment, not that many workers, right? So there's always a balance between all these things.
And our unemployment rate is below what 4%, it's like 4% or a little bit under now, which
Mhm.
economists will tell you is close to full employment because you've got always got churn.
Yeah.
So,
I think,
if you
yeah,
have 1% employment, then there's no opportunity to expand your workforce by bringing in more factories.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, I think Georgia's going to face this too. We've got, I mean, a $7.5 billion factory, Hyundai. They've got battery plant that's going in. They've got there's SK Battery and Commerce. There's another battery factory going into Cartersville and the Q Cells solar panel factory up in Dalton, like all of these places need highly skilled labor, and Georgia's pretty good about churning out those folks and cooperating with industry to get the right people. But it's still, I mean, when you talk to people on the ground, it's a real challenge, particularly the further out you go from major metropolitan areas.
All right, so let's jump to the hardest question of this interview session is what is something really cool about Trevor that people might not know about?
Well, there's a couple of things. I'm not sure they're cool, but I'll throw out something. One thing I like to do is I like to go to estate sales. I don't know if that's of
Okay.
interest.
Do you
I
have something in particular you're shopping for?
I don't know. I just part of me likes the thrill of the deal. Part of me likes just finding something of value that maybe has been overlooked. But also just finding stuff that could go well in our house. We've furnished a lot of our house using that. And then there's stuff to resell too. So it's kind of can be like a side hustle as well.
Do you have to kind of balance that with your partner as your wife? You're married, correct?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. You have to balance that with your spouse and say, okay, I'm going skate shopping again, and she says,
Well, she comes too.
she comes too. Okay, all right. Well, then
Sometimes,
it's okay. Then it's okay. It's not
sometimes
just you going out. It's not just you going out and bringing stuff home.
we pick our three kids and we instantly regret it. But it's a fun little like pastime to do on the weekends.
That
And
that's good. All
yeah,
right.
so
So the next couple of questions I call it kind of the lightning round. So quick, short answers. You don't have to get too far into it, but What's the last book you've read or the last podcast you've listened to?
The book I'll tell you the book I'm currently reading, or two books I'm currently reading. And so I'm not quite finished with them, but I'm close. The one is called I'm sorry, I'm blanking on the title now. Other Rivers, A Chinese Education by Peter Hessler. He's one of my favorite authors. This is kind of a sequel to the book Rivertown he wrote as um, a young Fulbright scholar going to China in I think it was the late 90s, and wrote about his experiences as a teacher there. Just really beautiful writing, lots of insight, and kind of blends this kind of like narrative writing with nonfiction, which is what I really love. And so this book is kind of like he goes back as a teacher at a bigger university in modern China, 2019, 2020, and experiences the pandemic there, and also like engages with students and really a new reality on the ground in China today. So he kind of compares and contrasts.
All right.
Uh,
Next question. Favorite local restaurant?
Favorite local restaurant? That is a hard one. Yeah, I should have prepared better for this one.
Where do you
Uh,
guys like to? It can be someplace good with the kids or someplace just good with the wife.
We like going to St. Cecilia, Buckhead. That's a good one.
Okay.
Let's see. I really like these lots of different little breakfast places. I really like Thumbs Up Diner. Me and Phil used to go there a lot. So there's lots of cool places around. But
All right.
those are the that come to
All
mind.
right. Favorite guilty pleasure?
What does that mean?
Something. Sometimes people say, "Oh, I watched this. I watched the Real Housewives of Atlanta," or I watched these really weird reality shows, or I like to. What was the other one I get sometimes is you know, dark chocolate or something like that.
Yeah.
That's something you enjoy, but you feel a little guilty about
Okay.
doing.
I'll tell you. Here's mine. I love convenience stores and road trip food. So I'm notorious in my family as the one who will like always stop. And I have a hierarchy of gas stations that have the best snacks, best
All
fountain.
right, so which one has the best snacks and which has the worst?
Well, my hierarchy includes things like the convenience of actually getting gas and getting in and out of there and understanding
Right.
the lane and whatnot. But I mean, QT is pretty high up there on the list. Racetrack's pretty good now. They've done a lot to up their game. Of course, a lot of people like Buc-ee's. I'm not a huge Buc-ee's fan.
But Bucky's is one you gotta have some.
It's a novel,
That's a time investment, right?
it's a novelty. It's a destination,
Yeah,
but
I stopped there once on the way back from a scout camp out, and then we thought, oh, we're just gonna grab some lunch.
not
Two
my
hours 2 hours later,
not my
yeah,
favorite experience. But
yeah,
I'm like the dad who is like generally pretty. I don't really eat a lot of junk food all the time, but like on a road trip, I will like let my kids buy whatever they want and just
yeah.
will.
Well, that's the thing. If you're on vacation or you're on a road trip, you kind of
Yeah.
you relax the rules a little bit because you're on vacation. So there's a little bit of that. All right. Local getaway. What's a good place you like to go to either relax or get away from it all a little bit?
What is relaxing? I wish I knew
Okay,
that.
well maybe going to work is relaxing for you. You could say I go to the office to get away. That's all right.
Let's see. Let's see. We did go to Chattanooga recently and really enjoyed that. And it's a good family place to go and not
Yeah.
too far. So
Okay. Um,
that's good.
and the last question is, what's your kind of your favorite non-work hobby?
Yeah, I've been thinking about this a lot because I actually want to engage in some hobbies,
It's
create
hard when you
some.
got it's hard when you get three kids to have
Yeah,
hobbies other than your kids, right?
yeah. So, I mean, I would say probably my top one I'd want to spend more time on is playing music, so guitar and writing songs. I have about a million half-written songs that I've not finished. So I want to put together a little album in quotation marks and like just finish out some of the songs I've been working on. So
There
that's
you go. That's aspirational. I like that. All right,
yeah,
and that's a good place to kind of round us out today. Um,
great.
we've been talking with Trevor Williams with Global Atlanta. Trevor, thank you for being with us. We appreciate it. Um, go to globalatlanta.com. Is that correct? Globalatlanta.com. All right. Don't want to get the .net, .com, anything right. Globalatlanta.com, and I'll put that in the show notes, as they say. So that'll be there. Um, and as always, if you want to see other episodes of our Four Questions Journal Spotlight, go find us on YouTube or on Amazon Music, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you find all your audio podcasts. You can find us either way. And if you want to click the subscribe button uh, there below, you can click that too, and you'll get some sort of notice when a new episode shows up. All righty. Trevor, thank you so much. We appreciate it.